Hi there, I'm Megan Lambert, and this is the 6th video in the Feminine Rising series, and this one is on From Scientific to Intuitive. So the masculine world that we live in loves data. It loves to have a scientific hypothesis and go out into the world and test it and validate it and find out if it's right or wrong, correct or false. The feminine is more intuitive, and so it will unconsciously sense a lot of things and then create a gut feeling in us. So if you read the book Blink by Malcolm Gladwell, he talks about our unconscious processes millions of data points every second, far more than our conscious mind could ever be aware of, and it creates this kind of gut feeling. So when you walk into a room and you're like, ugh, or oh, that's your feminine. That's your feminine intuition speaking to you, saying something feels good here, something doesn't feel good there. And that's so important to listen to because it is giving us information we might not get any other way. So for example, and it's so interesting to me because I've been practicing listening to my intuition, how oddly and eerily spot on it can be sometimes. So for example, a year ago, I sat down to write a paper. I just had an urge, like sit down and write. So I was like, okay. And I sat and I decided to write this article called 7 Skills Future Leaders Need. And I was a leadership consultant at the time and was working with a number of different companies. And I just kind of created something. I just wrote down 7 skills I think people need. And then I published it on LinkedIn. And then about a week later, I went and talked to one of my colleagues at work, and he had written the exact same article. Super weird. We had not planned that, but he had done it a different way. He had gone out and researched and read scientific papers and looked at the latest trends, read articles, but the weird thing is when we looked at our articles side by side, both 7 skills future leaders need, they were almost the exact same skills. So we had gathered them in different ways. He had gone out in the masculine way to back it up scientifically and find data points. And I had just sat down and listened to my gut and wrote. And it was the same thing. We were both picking up on similar trends, similar patterns through 2 different ways. So that just blew me away. I was like, oh my gosh. And I think one of the hardest things about intuition is believing that it's real. And so we live in a society that really values data. It values scientific study. So if you say something like, oh, I think our company should do this, a lot of people will be like, okay, well, what data did you use? What do you have to back that up? And that is so important. Data is amazing, especially big data, all the cool data analytics we can do now. But it's not a substitute for intuition. So intuition still has important things that it's picking up that data can't ever pick up. Like, intuition's really important, especially in relationships, because people have a gut feeling, and when you meet them, you have a sense. You're like, oh, something in me doesn't quite sync with that person, or something feels off or feels good with them. And that is so important. And so it takes a lot of trust to hear that and listen to it. And so it's a really good practice to do. So my question I'll leave you with today is, if you slow down and tune in, especially to your belly, that's where a lot of our intuition sits, what is your intuition telling you? What's your feminine, what's your intuition trying to tell you that your scientific analyzing mind is not letting you hear yet? So slow down, take a breath, feel your belly, and see what your intuition wants to tell you.